I'm Lisa Snyderman, and this is Conversations on Creating to Heal. Today, I'm really happy to be speaking with Sue Carpenter in San Jose, California. And she's the mother of a daughter with juvenile dermatomyositis. And her story is making quilts to bring smiles to others with juvenile myositis. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on today. So can you talk a little bit about yourself and maybe if you have a mission for the kind of work you're doing?
I am the proud mother of a set of fraternal twins, one with juvenile dermatomyositis, who was diagnosed when she was 16, 15 years ago. Still under treatment, not hit remission. And my mission is to make quilts, to mail them worldwide to other children, teens, and adults with juvenile dermatomyositis to just give some smiles. And my motivation goes back to when Kristen was 8 years old and in the hospital for 3 months with intense medical conditions she had. And a friend had crocheted her a blanket. And that blanket was her best friend in the hospital. And each night when she'd wrap up in it, despite what was going on, there was a smile. So I reflected back on that time when I started making quilts. And the first one I made went to Mason Smedley, a little boy who was very chronically ill with JM. And I asked his mom what he liked, found out sharks were his passion, and so I sent him a shark quilt. And the smile that came back on the email to me was so heartwarming that the mission kind of skyrocketed from there.
Gosh, what a beautiful way to make a contribution, make a difference, do something, especially when sometimes we feel helpless, especially caretakers, to be able to, relieve pain or take the disease away. But this is a way that you can do something and feel good about yourself and also, have a big impact. So I want to talk a little bit about your story, though, before we get to the quilts. So it's a kind of a combo story, it sounds like, for you and your daughter. So talk about, for people who aren't familiar with myositis, and especially a juvenile, getting this muscle disease, what is it? And what kind of events transpired, that have transformed you and your daughter?
Kristen has always been known all of her life to have medical quirks that nobody has any answer for. And doctors over the years, it became sort of a standing joke with our pediatrician, must be another Kristenism. Kristen developed muscle weakness. Retrospect, she's always had muscle weakness, but the muscle weakness got worse such that she was tripping over her own 2 feet and doing more face plants and unable to get back up from that. And I pursued it back, starting with her pediatrician, said, well, Kristen falls a lot. Kristen doesn't have good balance. And I said, there's something else going on. Led us to a rheumatologist who originally diagnosed her with lupus at age 14. And we started treating, but the whole muscle piece was getting worse, very slowly. And so finally it led us to do an MRI, which being the diagnosis. And while most people go, that's something I've never heard of, that's so rare, I said, oh my gosh, it's a diagnosis. I was ecstatic. It was one of the first solid diagnoses she had. Yeah. So to have something that we knew, even though there was no cure, that we could treat and that there was a trajectory for it, was incredible for me. And that's where I come at it from a different viewpoint from so many parents. I was so grateful for the diagnosis.
Yeah, well, at least having something gives you a framework, it gives you something that you can do instead of, searching and being in a place of mystery and then not having any treatment option.
Yeah,
and the kind of myositis that Kristen has, is treatable, correct? It isn't
Yes.
that right? There's certain types of myositis that don't have treatment or effective treatment.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And we've struggled a lot with the different treatments because she started high dose steroids. She was on high dose steroids for almost 10 years. And of course, all of the side effects that came from the steroids was as bad as being on steroids. Bone issues, eye issues, the list rolls on. To methotrexate, where we discovered she had a lung disease problem that we didn't know that goes along with myositis. So it's been a roller coaster, but she's not falling over her feet anymore. You know, she's upright. She's tired a lot. She fatigues super easy, but she's not falling every day. And I don't have to worry now when she goes up the stairs that she's going to fall up them.
Yeah, I know, it's right. It's like we take our blessings where we can get them.
Exactly.
And for the
Exactly.
viewers that may not know, I also share the same disease. So I have dermatomyositis as an adult. So I can definitely resonate, you know, with a lot of the treatments and the difficulties with that, but also, you know, with focusing on something that brings joy. So for you, it's making quilts, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, incidentally, does Kristen also have, you know, something that she turns to help her process and brings her joy?
Nothing in particular other than the dogs. And
The dogs, yeah.
we breed and show and raise golden retrievers.
Wow.
And Kristen's also got a speech impairment, totally separate from JM. But it's through her Dr. Doolittle, as we've always said, her lack of speech, that she communicates with our animals and has got such a sixth sense of understanding them and the comfort they bring her. She doesn't have we had a therapy dog who passed away, and none of our dogs have become therapy dogs since then, but any one of them could. But
yes, no, that's so beautiful. You know, what a neat thing for her to communicate and be able to not have to focus, you know, all the time on what she's going through. So I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about what the impact has been of sharing your quilts. What kinds
oh
of
my gosh,
messages and things have you got received from people who you've made them for?
the emails, the Facebook posts, the pictures, and when I send each quilt, I send a note that explains that I'm trying to reach as many families as I can through quilt making, and that hopefully that this is going to bring some extra smiles. And all I want to know is that you've received the quilt in the mail, and I would love a picture. And the pictures I have received are incredible. The kids' smiles, and in some cases, there's another sibling in the picture with them, or even the dog is curled up with them, or they've sent me the picture in the infusion chair.
Oh, yeah.
And my note says that Kristen's quilt accompanies her to every hospital visit and every hospital stay that she has, and I hope this quilt can do the same for you. So there's been a lot of those pictures too. And I started out the quilts sending them to some of the kids who had been enduring JM and had not hit remission for years. Those kids who had prolonged, you know, medication treatments, needed a smile. And then it came to, it didn't matter how long or how short a time period, if they needed a smile, then I wanted to get the quilt out in the mail as fast as I could.
How did you determine who was getting a quilt? Are you getting requests now, or how is that working?
I get all sorts of requests. Well, how much can I pay you for a quilt? Or can I get my kid's name on the list? And I tell everybody, I don't take a list. It's random. It's sometimes an email that I'll get from somebody saying, hey, there's this kid going through this. A lot of times it's through the JM Moms group on Facebook, where you hear of a child, or it's sometimes recommendations within the JM community, and sometimes Shannon Malloy, you know, gets me, hey, this kid could really use a quilt. What can you do?
And Shannon Malloy is a person with Cure JM, right?
Yeah.
So, and Cure JM is an organization that's working to raise awareness, raise funds, research,
funding.
find a cure. Yeah.
Right. Right, for
Yeah,
juvenile, yeah.
for juveniles.
And the other thing that I've done for the last 5 years is every year at our national conferences, I've made a quilt and donated it to the conference. The first quilt I did, I created the Cure JM logo on it. And then every year since then, I've included JM kids' pictures
Oh,
with parent permission on the quilt. This last year, I think we had 45 pictures of different JM kids. One year, they all held up signs, "I need a cure." But trying to show at any conference, hey, here are our kids from toddlers clear through adulthood. And
yeah, what an impact. What
it's what help brings
visual.
in some funds.
Absolutely. So before I invite you to share a piece of your quilts, I want to ask the process for you. How long do the quilts take you to make them? And are you doing something that's helping, I don't know, make it a faster process, or is it still the same process from when you started?
It's pretty much still the same process, although I have finally invested in a quilting machine and a 10-foot frame.
Yeah.
But most of the quilts that I make for the kids are lap quilts, and so it's just easier to do it on the sewing machine. It probably takes me 40 hours per quilt.
Wow.
And I'm as we call quilters, fabricaholic. And so whenever I'm at the fabric store, if there's something that I think would work up into a kid's quilt, I buy it. And I just go, okay, this would work for this kid, knowing this about this child, this would work. And other times I make a quilt and then I figure out who it's going to. And I make it just because I like the pattern and I like the colors.
Yeah.
It really
Thank you.
varies.
Yeah. So I want to invite you to show us some of your quilts and talk about it.
To date, I've got 300 and I think it's 26 quilts that I have made and mailed across the United States. I've sent to Australia, New Zealand, and England, and Canada internationally. So, all right.
How beautiful. I just have to say, what a beautiful contribution. And talk about this one.
This is one that I found the pattern and I thought I'm going to create it and then I'll determine who it goes to. And it's got pretty much all primary girl colors. So it'll go to a girl, but I'm not sure who it's going to go to yet. I've got 2 or 3 that I need to make for.
I love the pattern. I like that it's kind of geometric, but that it differs. It's not all the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Although when I did it, this is one that's technically a little bit more complicated because the piecing was pretty intense. A simpler one that I can get done in less time is this type of pattern.
Ah, it looks like it has little, I don't know if they're little cats or robots
They're little monsters. They're little monsters. And the note that I'm going to write with this one is, I hope these monsters make you smile.
I'm sure they will. They're already making me smile.
This is going to a little boy back on the East Coast who's been diagnosed less than a year, but is going through IVIG. So he's 5 years old and he's in the hospital once a month. So if this will give him a smile and help those pokes and those infusions be easier, then that's my mission.
Yeah, and I can speak to that, having had, IVIG in hospitals for 6 months, I think. Having a blanket was one of those. It's like a feel good, it's a comfort and a feel good. So I think it's so great. Not only are you, helping smiles, but people be more comfortable, with what they have to deal with. So thank you.
I actually just made a quilt and that was a replacement quilt. She actually wore the quilt out after 8 years of going every month to infusions and then getting washed. And she said, my quilt's falling apart. How do I fix it? Let me send you a new one.
Oh, and that definitely is a heartstring, pulls on your heartstrings right there. So before we go, I just want to ask if you might have any life lessons or affirmations, something that works for you, that you might want to share for somebody going through something similar.
I have had my own share of medical issues over the last 8 years with body parts. I mean, a very bad knee, a wrist fusion, a major ankle surgery. but they're nothing compared to what my daughter goes through. And I can find every single time an alternative way to do what I'm doing and be successful.
Wow.
It's just, you know, this summer I bought a new little sewing machine that didn't require my foot since I had major foot surgery. So it's all done with my hands. Those are some of the things that my daughter, accommodations that she's got to make each and every day to her life. So it sort of brings that to reality to me, plus shows I can still do it. I have a minor impairment compared to her, and I can do it.
So is the lesson perhaps find ways, not only find alternative ways to do things, but find it in yourself to keep going.
Find the joy despite what's wrong. You know,
find the joy. Yes.
find the joy. There's always something to smile about.
I always say find the gift in the curse. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Sue, for coming on to Conversations on Creating to Heal.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.